Welcome to Secrets of the Stars, where we explore the ancient knowledge of astrology, decode your unique blueprint, and unveil how the wisdom of the sky contributes to your life. I'm your host, Abby Lutus, astrologer, mentor, and sky guide. It's time to embark on a cosmic adventure of self-discovery and understanding why you are the way you are. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to Secrets of the Stars, a podcast where we'll be exploring all things astrology, stars, and how it relates to you. With me, your host, Abby Lutus. And I'm so excited to be here launching this astrology podcast. It is something that I have been wanting to do for quite some time now. So I really am thrilled to be here in the airwaves with this podcast. I've created this podcast because, quite simply, I love astrology and I really want to guide you as the listeners to a deeper understanding of astrology. I believe that it's such a valuable tool for understanding the current energies of the moment, but more importantly, why you are the way you are. In this modern world, I think there is such a disconnect with nature, and nature has so much to teach us. And astrology and connecting with the stars is a really simple and beautiful way that we can begin to reconnect with the wisdom that is nature, that is all around us, and that has been around us since the beginning of time. So one of the reasons I'm so excited to be back in the land of podcasts is back in 2018, I had another podcast. I started the Wanderlust's Mind podcast, which was all about travel and understanding the incredible wisdom and lessons that we learn from traveling. I created over 100 episodes. I interviewed so many guests, and I just loved podcasting, interviewing people and sharing the things that they have learned and the things that I have learned. So that's what I am going to be doing with this astrology podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be sharing a little bit more about me. I want to introduce myself, but I'm not going to tell you the full story. In the next episode, I'll do a full introduction of me and my journey with astrology. I'm going to be sharing some important things to remember when it comes to working with astrology, and I'm going to give you a basic understanding of astrology. Before we dive in, I just wanted to share a valuable piece of information that I learnt when I was learning astrology. When I was learning astrology, I would mostly listen to podcasts, and there was so much language that I didn't understand, but I stuck with it and I really continued listening even though I didn't quite understand the language and the words and how they were being used. So I want to offer this to you, that astrology is a language and it comes with a lot of jargon. You're going to hear words that you don't quite understand. I'll be saying things like aspects and houses and signs and sextiles and squares. And in the beginning, it might not make sense. It might seem difficult at first, but I promise you, if you continue listening, you will develop a clear understanding of what it all means and how it all fits together. So I wanted to introduce myself by sharing my big 3 placements in my natal chart, because I really don't think that I can start this astrology podcast without you knowing a little bit more about me. So to kick it off, I am a Leo sun. So the sun represents our spirit, who we truly are in this lifetime. And as a Leo, they have qualities such as playfulness, fun-loving, kindness, warmth. Really, Leos are just here to have fun. Leos love to be on stage. They love being in the spotlight, but they also can be jealous, they can be bossy, and they can be very self-focused. So I always want to talk about light and shade when it comes to astrology. We don't always embody all of those qualities, but it's definitely something I don't want to sweep under the rug. So I have an Aquarius moon, and in astrology, the moon is our inner world. And Aquarius is complete opposite of Leo. Aquarius moon is an intellectual weirdo. Can be very detached. It's very future thinking, and it's going to be interested in things that are a little bit quirky. As my moon sign, this is how I relate to my emotions. And I really believe that astrology is fits under the container of Aquarius. So having the Leo sun and the Aquarius moon is like polar opposites. So who I truly am mixed with my inner world feels very polarizing, and sometimes the way I show up is not necessarily who I am. And I think that's one of the really cool things about astrology and having all these different mixtures of personalities. And finally, I am a Capricorn rising. So the rising sign really is the way we show up in the world. It's the gifts that we rise with, and it's how other people see us. So as a Capricorn rising, I am very goal orientated. I want to climb to the top of the mountain. I want to accomplish the success, and I want to work hard to get there. This is a really strong quality of Capricorns. A fun fact, when I first started learning astrology, I had the wrong birth time for myself. And when I first pulled up a chart, I actually thought I was a Sagittarius rising. And I really resonated with that. But when I had this identity crisis of learning that I was a Capricorn rising, and I fully looked into those qualities, I really truly believed that this was more accurate than the Sagittarius rising element that I had first learned about myself. I definitely have a lot of Sagittarius energy in my chart. I have a couple of planets there, but Capricorn rising really is the gifts that I rise with. So, a little bit more about me. When I was growing up, I was really an athlete. I loved sports and I did anything and everything when it came to sports. I played netball, basketball, tennis. I was involved in surf lifesaving, gymnastics, you name it, I did it all. I also loved to travel. I was very fortunate that my family, we would go on lots of family holidays around Australia. I also did a lot of study when I left school. I studied tourism, I studied sports, I studied event management, I studied massage, and I finally kind of got into the working world. I continued working whilst I was being an athlete. I was a very successful beach sprinter. I was talent ID'd into bobsledding as well, where I competed for Australia in both of those sports. And then later, I also played roller derby at an elite level. So whilst I was doing all of this, athlete competition, I also worked in event management, and I moved around and had a few different jobs. Finally, I got to a point, probably I will tell you this was my Saturn return, where I just wanted to throw it all in. And so I did. I threw everything in and I traveled over in South America. I didn't want to come home, so I went to Canada and ended up living there for 3 years. When I came home, I started and completed my studies in life coaching, and I really did not want to go back to the working world that I used to be in, where I was working at a desk, I was working in the city, and I was working in a 9 to 5 job. So I came home, I studied life coaching. I also had massage qualifications under my belt, but I really promised myself that I wouldn't go back to that type of desk job. I continued going on many adventures. I attempted to sea kayak across Bass Strait. I started doing multi-day hiking, and I had my own business as a massage therapist. I also had a job where I would take school kids traveling overseas and sharing the world with them, and that was really incredible as well. It was in 2019 that I really reignited my interest for astrology, and I really started to begin binge learning. I would listen to podcasts, I would read books, I studied courses, whatever you could do, you name it, I was doing it. And so that really sparked this interest in astrology for me. So, when 2020 hit and everything was going into lockdown here in Australia, 2020 was for me a year of learning astrology and really like figuring out like what I wanted to do next. I didn't want to stay in lockdown, and that an opportunity came across my path to work as a tour guide and a hiking guide. And so I took up that opportunity. I packed up my life in Victoria, in Australia, and I headed out to Central Australia, out into the desert, to the Larapinta Trail. And I started tour guiding on this beautiful trail. Little did I realize that this was just going to be a super valuable place for me to be to reconnect with the stars. I literally got to sleep out under the stars every single night, and I really deepened my astronomy knowledge and really reconnected with the stars. Being able to sleep underneath them every single night was just so, so incredible. So that's a little brief overview of me. And as I mentioned, we'll dive into more of an introduction in the next episode. But I wanted to keep moving with this initial episode about astrology. So I feel like I have a healthy level of skepticism, but diving into astrology during 2019, I was really learning and I was listening to a lot of forecasting and a lot of astrology podcasts were talking about what was coming in 2020. So seeing all that play out was incredibly mind-blowing, and I realized that astrology is not something that can be made up. So I was committed to learning more about it, more about the history, where it comes from, what it all means. Astrology is a language and it's being interpreted. So now I'm living in my van on the east coast of Australia, and I am really diving into the depths of astrology and helping other people understand themselves through this lens, through the lens of their chart, their cosmic blueprint, as I like to call it. So, what I believe is so important to understand about astrology before we even get started is that it is a tool. I use astrology as a tool to see what the energies are doing in the present moment, or as an energetic signature if we were referring to your birth chart. Essentially, a moment in time, which could be your birth or could be right this moment. The chart is essentially a snapshot of the sky. Where were the planets and what signs were they in at any one moment? At any one time, the stars can create a map in the sky, and this can be interpreted. This is astrology. It is a tool, and first and foremost, what I always like to tell everyone is that astrology is this beautiful tool, but first and foremost, your intuition, your inner guide must come first. And having that deep connection with that is so, so important, because even now, as we move into this world with technology developing so fast, with AI, with all these things which we might not know what is real, what is true, we need to be able to have a deep understanding with our intuition, because that inner knowing will tell us what is true for us and what is right for us. I always say, if something doesn't resonate with you, then don't take it on. Don't take that message. It's just not for you. Astrology is a language that can be interpreted in so many different ways, and I have my own interpretation. I use a blend of intuition, which means I will share messages that come into my awareness. So I tell everyone, take the messages that resonate with you and leave the rest. Astrology always has light and shade, good or bad, yin and yang, however you want to call it. And I don't think that we should shy away from this. I think we can use this to access the best points from astrology, but I think we always need to acknowledge that there is light and there is shade or shadow or darkness, or however you want to call it. The other thing that is important to know about astrology is not all astrology will impact you. A total solar eclipse in Libra could be having a profound impact on you while it's not even impacting your friend. And until you gain a deeper understanding of your chart and of astrology itself, you're not going to know why something is impacting you and it's not impacting someone else. But there is a reason behind all of that. So what even is astrology? This is really hard to sum up in one small sentence, but I'll give you a few sentences or a few understandings or definitions. Astrology has been known as the study of fate and fortune. Astrology is the ancient study of the influence that celestial bodies of the universe, such as planets, asteroids, and stars, have on human life and earthly events. It also has been thought of as the search for meaning in the sky. And what's really fascinating about astrology is the evidence of its origins date back to as early as 3000 BC. Astrology's history is long, it's rich, it's controversial, and here we are, still practicing it today in the 21st century. It's not a fad, it's not going away. For now, I think it's really handy to know that in the 20th century came the rebirth of astrology, known as modern astrology. And modern astrology incorporates the outer planets, which are Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. These were later found by astronomers because initially you couldn't see, and still you can't see these planets with the naked eye. So it was only when telescopes came along that these planets could be seen and they started to be incorporated in astrology. This astrology, this modern astrology, gained popularity through mainstream media such as horoscopes and what is known as pop astrology. It's like the introduction into the world of astrology. The star signs are just a small snippet of your personal astrology. You can't possibly put a full natal chart interpretation. So pop astrology has a very valuable place in the world. It's that introduction that will draw you into astrology. Astrology is fast becoming more recognized as a modern day practice, which I really think is really cool. Right now we have Saturn in Pisces, and Saturn has just been through Aquarius, and we've got Pluto moving into Aquarius, and these are all very astrological themed times. And so it's no surprise that astrology is making this comeback. And many people now are connecting more deeply to the energies of their natal chart and their cosmic blueprint. So it is really common for people to know a little bit about their big three, their sun, moon, and rising signs, if not their entire chart. So I think as a collective, we are really starting to become more curious and ask more questions and open our minds to understanding topics like astrology, which is so, so valuable. So let's get back to the basics of astrology and to give you an understanding of the language itself. In very succinct sum up, astrology consists of planets, signs, houses, and aspects. This is basic astrology. There is a lot more, but let's start with the basics. So I like to see the planets as the characters or the personalities. In our natal astrology, in our birth chart, the planets represent the different personalities that we have. So this could be how we show up as a friend, how we show up as in our inner world, how we show up to the public eye as a mother, as a daughter, these different personalities within us. They're like the different characters that we have within our psyche. Now, the signs these are the different characteristics of that personality. So they could be bold, they could be shy, they could be outgoing, they could be fun-loving. The signs flavor the characters. They give the different characteristics to those personalities. Next, we have the houses, and the houses are the different areas of your life in which themes or certain things will play out. So maybe it's going to play out in your home life. Is it going to play out in your career? Is it going to play out in your friendships or your relationships? This all comes back to the houses. And finally, we have the aspects. These are the different angles that the planets make with one another. And I like to think of this as the way the planets are having conversations with one another. Are they angry? Are they tense? Are they in harmony? Are they happy? How are they talking to one another? I really like to describe this as a stage play. So the planets are the different characters in the play, the signs are the different costumes that they wear, the houses are the different stages of life that they play out, and the aspects are the different types of relationships they have with one another. So that's how I like to describe astrology. Now, I could riff on about astrology for ages, but I'm not going to. I'm going to stop there. Astrology is deep, so deep. It is as deep as it is wide, and you could really dedicate your life to the study of astrology. It is still not fully understandable, even if you spent your whole life studying astrology. That's what I think is so fascinating about it. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about what led me to dive into this deep and fascinating topic. I'm going to share a little bit more about me in good old-fashioned Leo style, and I'm going to share with you some fascinating dates on my astrology timeline. So to tie up this episode, I want to let you know that I'm just so thrilled to be bringing this podcast into the world. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you know someone that would enjoy this episode, please, please, please share it and come on over and join me on Instagram. I love having a conversation with you over there. I have so many people coming into my DMs and talking astrology, telling me about their signs, and I just love that so much. You can find me on Instagram at Stars by Abby. You can also find more about my work. If you're looking for a natal chart reading, come on over to my website, www.abbylutis.com. And until next time, keep shining bright. Thank you for joining me on this cosmic journey of self-discovery. If you have enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and share it with someone who you think would love it. Keep exploring the secrets of the stars, and remember, the universe has woven a unique story just for you. Until next time, keep shining bright.